Okay, so we continue with the second project, which is populating a data grid table using inputs, using TextBox. So first, we have the public class form one. So we get the public class form one by double clicking on our form interface, which is at the UI aspect. After that, we define a variable, which is what table, which creates an in-memory table to store user input, which is known as table. So later, we move on to defining or adding our columns to the table. So to define our columns, we have table.column.add, which adds a new column to the table, and it has some parameters in it which are ID and get data integer. So the ID is the column name and then get type integer indicates that the data type of that column should be an integer, which means it only accepts integer value. So move on to the second column, which has name, first name, and has a get type of string, which means it can only accept data which are string, such as somebody's name, example John. So we move on to the third one, also same as the second one, which also takes input of data type string. And the last one, which is the fourth one, is age. We take in integer data type. So later we bind our DataGridView one, which is the default name of the DataGridView UI name. That is name. The data source is equal to the table, the variable repeated, which is the in-memory data table created to accept user input. So we bind it together so that when we run our UI, the table would be displayed on top of the data grid view UI. So we move on to private sub button one underscore click. So to get this, we double click on our button UI, which gives us a skeleton for us to write the code to add our rules. So the function of the button is like after we are done inputting our data in the text boxes, when we click on the button, it's automatically added to the rule which exists in our columns. So we have so now we will define, we will create a code, we explain how that happens, which is the button adds the rule directly to the rules that exist on our table on the data grid view. So table.rules.add cint text1.text text txt.2.text. So the txt1 is okay. Let me start from it. Cint means convert to integer. txt1.text. txt1 is the name of one of the text boxes. Its name. So the text, since it is a name of a text box, we added the text to it. Same applies to the txt2, txt3, and the txt4. So with the txt4 we convert its input to be integer because the txt1 accepts the ID and the txt4 accepts the user's age, and txt2 and txt3 accept the first name and the last name. So we move on to the clearing input. So what this means is that txt1 dot clear, txt2 dot clear, txt3 dot clear, txt4 dot clear. When the user is done inputting the value and clicks or taps on the add, the value the user inputted in the text boxes will be automatically added to that of the data grid view, and all the values in the all the text boxes will be cleared as the user clicks on the add button. So we have a look at how the UI text. We are now at the UI stage. So now what we do is we enter some values into the UI so that we will have a look at how it functions. So first the ID, you know that the ID takes data type of what integer. So it's going here. So this will be our ID2, and the first name will be, let's say, Kofi. The last name will be Yokum. The age maybe 25, and we click on add. So you can observe that everything cleared when we click on add. That is what the function of the txt1 dot clear, txt2 dot clear, and it automatically added. So that was what the button, the code at the button was doing. It triggers an addition of a new row which has values or user input to the table on the which is binded to the data grid. So this is where we end this session. Thank you.